When Rihanna posted her latest lingerie photos, the internet did exactly what you'd expect. It exploded. Millions of views, endless reposts, fans losing their minds, nothing unusual, right? But then something shifted. Within hours, the conversation wasn't about the photos anymore, it was about ASAP Rocky. Suddenly, headlines started popping up claiming he wasn't okay with it. Some even said he went crazy behind the scenes, and that this moment, these exact photos, might have pushed their relationship to the breaking point. And just like that, what started as a fashion campaign turned into a full-blown relationship crisis, at least according to the internet. Now here's where things get interesting. Because if you've been following Rihanna for even a little while, you already know, this isn't new. She built an empire on confidence, ownership, and doing exactly what she wants, when she wants. Savage X Fenty isn't just a brand, it's a billion-dollar business, and she's always been the face of it. So why would this one photo shoot suddenly cause problems at home? Why would a man who's publicly supported her for years suddenly flip over something she's been doing consistently? That's the part that doesn't add up. And yet, the rumors kept spreading, faster, louder, and more dramatic with every repost. So now the real question isn't just did ASAP Rocky have a problem? It's why people were so quick to believe that he did. Because when you actually break this down, the timeline, the statements, the history of their relationship, a completely different picture starts to emerge. One that has less to do with jealousy or drama, and more to do with how easily narratives get manufactured online. In this video, we are going step by step through what really happened, the photos, the reactions, the rumors, and the truth behind whether Rihanna actually left Rocky, or if this is just another viral story that got way out of control. To really understand why this story blew up the way it did, you have to understand who Rihanna actually is, not just as a celebrity, but as a brand, a business, and a cultural force. Rihanna isn't just a pop star who occasionally trends online. She's one of the most influential figures in modern entertainment, someone who successfully transitioned from music into building a billion-dollar empire. From chart-topping hits to dominating the beauty and fashion industry, everything she does carries weight. And that includes every single post she makes. When Rihanna uploads a photo, it's not random, it's strategic. It drives attention, it drives conversation, and most importantly, it drives business. That's exactly what Savage X Fenty was built on: confidence, control, and redefining how women present themselves. So when she posts bold lingerie photos, she's not crossing a line, she's doing exactly what her brand has always stood for. Now add ASAP Rocky into the picture, and suddenly, this isn't just about one person anymore, it's about one of the most high-profile couples in the world. Rocky isn't just Rihanna's partner. He's a major artist in his own right, known for his influence in hip-hop, fashion, and culture. But what makes their relationship different from most celebrity couples is how it actually started. This wasn't a quick Hollywood romance, or a PR-driven relationship. Rihanna and Rocky go way back, over a decade. They first connected professionally, collaborating on music and performances, including that iconic 2012 VMAs moment that had people talking for years. Back then, it looked playful, almost electric, but nothing serious. At least not yet. For years, their timing never lined up. Rihanna was in other high-profile relationships, Rocky had his own dating history, and they both stayed focused on their careers. But behind the scenes, the connection never really disappeared. They remained close, continued working together, and built a foundation that wasn't based on hype, it was based on familiarity and trust. Then everything changed around 2020. During the global lockdown, when the world slowed down, their relationship sped up. What started as friendship turned into something real. In interviews later on, Rihanna herself admitted that this period brought them closer in a way that probably wouldn't have happened under normal circumstances. They went from longtime friends to partners, and not long after that, to a family. And that's another key piece people often overlook. This isn't just a celebrity couple, it's a family. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky share children together, and over the past few years, they've built a life that's constantly under public scrutiny. Every appearance, every interaction, every post gets analyzed. But despite that pressure, they've consistently shown up for each other. Whether it's Rihanna supporting Rocky at his shows, or Rocky publicly praising Rihanna in interviews, their dynamic has always looked solid from the outside. Even when rumors tried to shake that image, and there have been plenty, they've managed to move past them without publicly falling apart. And that's where things start to connect back to the current situation. Because this isn't the first time the internet has tried to create drama around them. In fact, their relationship has been a constant target for speculation, cheating rumors, breakup claims, and viral posts that turned out to be completely false. Each time, the same pattern repeats. A headline drops, social media runs with it, and suddenly a narrative is created before any real facts come out. And because they are such a high-profile couple, those stories spread faster and hit harder than usual. Over time, that creates a kind of background noise, a constant expectation that something must be wrong, even when there's no real evidence. So when Rihanna posted those lingerie photos, it didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened in a space where people were already used to questioning their relationship. It happened in a culture where audiences expect drama, and where even the smallest moment can be turned into a headline. And that's exactly why the reaction escalated so quickly. Because for a lot of people watching, it wasn't just about the photos, it was about fitting those photos into a story they were already ready to believe. A story about tension, about control, about something going wrong behind closed doors. But here's the thing, once you understand their history, their dynamic, and everything they've already been through together, that story starts to feel a lot less convincing. Because nothing about Rihanna's career, her brand, or her relationship suggests that one photo shoot would suddenly change everything. If anything, it raises a bigger question: was there ever a real issue at all? Or did the internet just do what it always does, take a moment, exaggerate it, and turn it into something it was never meant to be? Everything really starts on April 23rd, the moment Rihanna hits post. No warning, no teaser, no long caption, just a series of bold, high-quality lingerie photos from her Savage X Fenty collection. The visuals were striking, soft lighting, confident poses, and a level of control that instantly reminded people why she dominates both fashion and culture. Within minutes, timelines across Instagram and Twitter were flooded. Fans were reposting, blogs were screenshotting, and engagement numbers were climbing fast. This wasn't just another celebrity post, this was a full-scale viral moment. And at first, everything followed the usual pattern: admiration, hype, and a flood of comments praising her confidence and business strategy. But then, the shift happened. Somewhere between the reposts and the reaction threads, the focus quietly moved away from Rihanna and landed on A$AP Rocky. It started subtly. A few comments here and there. I wonder how Rocky feels about this. Is he okay with her posting like this? Nothing major at first. But that's how these things always begin. A simple question turns into speculation, speculation turns into assumptions, and assumptions turn into headlines. Within hours, entertainment blogs and gossip pages picked up the angle and ran with it. Suddenly, it wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was a narrative. Claims started surfacing that Rocky was upset, that he felt disrespected, that things were tense behind closed doors. And then came the escalation. The story didn't just stop at his upset. It evolved, quickly. Some posts began suggesting that Rocky had lost it over the photos. Others hinted that arguments had already started. And then, the biggest claim of all started circulating, that Rihanna had allegedly had enough, and walked away. No confirmed sources, no official statements, just a rapidly spreading storyline that seemed to grow more dramatic with every repost. And because it involved two of the biggest names in entertainment, it spread fast. Really fast. Within a single day, what started as a fashion campaign had turned into one of the most talked about celebrity breakup stories online. But here's where things get important: timing. Because none of this came from Rihanna. None of it came from Rocky. There were no interviews, no posts, no direct reactions from either side confirming anything. Everything was happening externally, built entirely on interpretation. People weren't reacting to something that was said, they were reacting to what they thought might be happening. And in the world of social media, that's more than enough to fuel a viral story. Especially when there's already a history of rumors surrounding the couple. At the same time, the context behind the photos was being completely overlooked. This wasn't a random personal post, it was part of a Savage X Fenty campaign. A business move. A marketing strategy. Rihanna has done this before, multiple times, with similar visuals and the same level of boldness. But this time, for some reason, the reaction felt different. It felt amplified. And that raises an important question. Was it really about the photos? Or was it about the narrative people were ready to attach to them? As the hours passed, more pages picked up the story, each one adding their own spin. Some framed it as a relationship issue. Others pushed it as a respect debate. And a few went even further, presenting it almost as confirmed fact, despite there being no real evidence to support it. This is how the situation spiraled. Not because something clearly happened, but because enough people repeated the same idea until it started to feel real. And by the end of the day, the internet had already decided what the story was. Rihanna posts photos Rocky gets upset, relationship in trouble. Clean, simple, dramatic, and potentially completely inaccurate. Because when you step back and actually look at what triggered all of this, it comes down to one thing: perception. Not facts. Not statements. Just perception. And in an environment where attention moves fast and verification moves slow, perception can easily take over before the truth even has a chance to catch up. So now the situation is set. The photos are out, the rumors are everywhere, and the narrative is already forming in people's minds. But what happens when you start digging deeper? What happens when you actually break down the timeline, the statements, and the facts that came after? That's where things start to change. Everything really starts on April 23rd, the moment Rihanna hits post. No warning, no teaser, no long caption, just a series of bold, high-quality lingerie photos from her Savage X Fenty collection. The visuals were striking: soft lighting, confident poses, and a level of control that instantly reminded people why she dominates both fashion and culture. Within minutes, timelines across Instagram and Twitter were flooded. Fans were reposting, blogs were screenshotting, and engagement numbers were climbing fast. This wasn't just another celebrity post, this was a full-scale viral moment. And at first, everything followed the usual pattern: admiration, hype, and a flood of comments praising her confidence and business strategy. But then, the shift happened. Somewhere between the reposts and the reaction threads, the focus quietly moved away from Rihanna and landed on ASAP Rocky. It started subtly. A few comments here and there. I wonder how Rocky feels about this. Is he okay with her posting like this? Nothing major at first. But that's how these things always begin. A simple question turns into speculation, speculation turns into assumptions, and assumptions turn into headlines. Within hours, entertainment blogs and gossip pages picked up the angle and ran with it. Suddenly, it wasn't just curiosity anymore, it was a narrative. Claims started surfacing that Rocky was upset, that he felt disrespected, that things were tense behind closed doors. And then came the escalation. The story didn't just stop at his upset. It evolved, quickly. Some posts began suggesting that Rocky had lost it over the photos. Others hinted that arguments had already started. And then, the biggest claim of all started circulating, that Rihanna had allegedly had enough, and walked away. No confirmed sources, no official statements, just a rapidly spreading storyline that seemed to grow more dramatic with every repost. And because it involved two of the biggest names in entertainment, it spread fast. Really fast. Within a single day, what started as a fashion campaign had turned into one of the most talked about celebrity breakup stories online. But here's where things get important: timing. Because none of this came from Rihanna. None of it came from Rocky. There were no interviews, no posts, no direct reactions from either side confirming anything. Everything was happening externally, built entirely on interpretation. People weren't reacting to something that was said, they were reacting to what they thought might be happening. And in the world of social media, that's more than enough to fuel a viral story. Especially when there's already a history of rumors surrounding the couple. At the same time, the context behind the photos was being completely overlooked. This wasn't a random personal post, it was part of a Savage X Fenty campaign. A business move. A marketing strategy. Rihanna has done this before, multiple times, with similar visuals and the same level of boldness. But this time, for some reason, the reaction felt different. It felt amplified. And that raises an important question. Was it really about the photos? Or was it about the narrative people were ready to attach to them? As the hours passed, more pages picked up the story, each one adding their own spin. Some framed it as a relationship issue. Others pushed it as a respect debate. And a few went even further, presenting it almost as confirmed fact, despite there being no real evidence to support it. This is how the situation spiraled. Not because something clearly happened, but because enough people repeated the same idea until it started to feel real. And by the end of the day, the internet had already decided what the story was. Rihanna posts photos Rocky gets upset, relationship in trouble. Clean, simple, dramatic, and potentially completely inaccurate. Because when you step back and actually look at what triggered all of this, it comes down to one thing: perception. Not facts. Not statements. Just perception. And in an environment where attention moves fast and verification moves slow, perception can easily take over before the truth even has a chance to catch up. So now the situation is set. The photos are out, the rumors are everywhere, and the narrative is already forming in people's minds. But what happens when you start digging deeper? What happens when you actually break down the timeline, the statements, and the facts that came after? That's where things start to change. Once the rumor took off, there was no slowing it down. What started as a few speculative comments quickly turned into a full-blown media cycle. Social platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok were flooded with reactions, and not just from fans, but from content pages, gossip accounts, and even semi-credible entertainment blogs. Everyone had a take. Everyone had a headline. And most of them were built on the same assumption, that something had gone wrong between Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, even though no one could actually prove it. The reactions split almost immediately into two camps. On one side, you had people defending Rihanna strongly. Fans were quick to point out that this is exactly who she has always been: confident, independent, and completely in control of her image. For them, the idea that she should tone it down because she's in a relationship didn't make sense. Comments like, "She built this brand, why would she stop now?" and "He knew who she was before they got together" started trending. To this group, the narrative of Rocky being upset felt outdated, almost like people were trying to force a traditional relationship dynamic onto a couple that clearly doesn't operate that way. But on the other side, there was a completely different reaction. Some users leaned into the drama. They framed the situation as a respect issue, questioning whether posting revealing photos while being in a committed relationship crosses a line. These takes gained traction fast because they were emotional, debatable, and easy to engage with. And that's exactly what social media thrives on, not necessarily truth, but conflict. The more controversial the angle, the more it spreads. So even without evidence, the idea of Rocky being upset became more interesting than the reality of him being supportive. Then came the media layer. Entertainment blogs and viral news pages didn't just report the situation, they amplified it. Headlines became more dramatic with each repost. Words like "furious," "loses it," "final straw" started appearing more frequently, even though none of those claims were backed by direct sources. And because these headlines were written for clicks, not clarity, they shaped how people interpreted the situation before they even read the details. Most people didn't go looking for Rocky's actual statement. They saw the headline, formed an opinion, and moved on. And that's how perception gets locked in. Meanwhile, reaction videos and commentary creators added another layer. TikTok breakdowns, YouTube reactions, and short-form clips began analyzing body language, past interviews, and even old moments from their relationship to prove that tension had been building. Suddenly, everything became evidence, even things that had nothing to do with the current situation. A past rumor brought back, an old interview reinterpreted, a previous controversy reconnected. The narrative wasn't just growing, it was being reinforced from every angle. What makes this even more interesting is how quickly the truth got buried. Because while all of this was happening, the debates, the reactions, the viral posts, Rocky's actual statement was already out there. Clear, direct, supportive. But it didn't travel nearly as far as the rumor. Why? Because it wasn't dramatic. It didn't create conflict. And in the current media environment, boring truth doesn't outperform exciting fiction. So while the narrative of "he went crazy" kept spreading, the reality of "he supports her" struggled to keep up. This is where you start to see the bigger pattern. High-profile couples like Rihanna and Rocky exist in a space where their relationship isn't just theirs, it's public content. People don't just watch it, they interpret it, reshape it, and sometimes even rewrite it. And once a certain storyline becomes popular, it takes on a life of its own. It doesn't need proof anymore, it just needs repetition. The more people say it, the more real it starts to feel. And that's exactly what happened here. A single photo shoot triggered a wave of reactions. Those reactions turned into assumptions. Those assumptions turned into headlines. And those headlines turned into a widely accepted story, even though the foundation of that story was never solid to begin with. So by the time things started settling down, most people weren't asking, "Is this true?" anymore. They were asking, "What happens next?" And that's the moment where perception fully takes over reality. But if you step back and look at everything, the timeline, the reactions, the media behavior, it becomes clear that this situation says more about the audience and the system than it does about Rihanna or Rocky themselves. Because at the center of it all, one question still stands. If there was never real evidence of a problem, why did the world react like there was one? At this point, the situation stops being just about Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, and starts becoming about something much bigger: how narratives are created, pushed, and believed online. Because when you strip everything back, there's one uncomfortable truth here: this entire "Rocky went crazy" story didn't need proof to go viral. It just needed to feel believable. And that's exactly where the internet becomes powerful and dangerous. Think about it. Why did this rumor stick so fast? It wasn't random. It tapped into something people already expect: drama in celebrity relationships. There's this built-in assumption online that no high-profile couple is ever truly stable. So when something even slightly controversial happens, like a bold lingerie shoot, people instinctively look for conflict. Not because they've seen it, but because they expect it. And once that expectation is triggered, the brain starts filling in gaps on its own. That's how speculation turns into truth without any real evidence. Then there's the algorithm factor. Social media platforms don't reward accuracy, they reward engagement. And nothing drives engagement like conflict. A calm statement like "her body, her choice" doesn't get nearly as many clicks as "he lost it behind the scenes." One is stable, the other is explosive. So which one gets pushed more? The answer is obvious. The system itself amplifies the more dramatic version, even if it's less accurate. And over time, that creates a feedback loop. People see the dramatic version more often, so they assume it must be the real one. But it goes even deeper than that. There's also a pattern of targeting strong, independent women, especially ones like Rihanna, who operate on their own terms. When a woman is fully in control of her image, her business, and her decisions, there's often an attempt to reframe that power as a problem. In this case, it showed up as, "Is she doing too much?" Or "How does her partner feel about this?" The focus quietly shifts from her success to whether her behavior is acceptable within a relationship. And once that shift happens, it opens the door for narratives about control, conflict, and tension, even if none of those things actually exist. Now combine that with their history. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky have already been through multiple rumor cycles, cheating allegations, breakup claims, public speculation. Even though those stories were debunked, they leave behind a kind of memory in the audience's mind. So when a new situation comes up, people don't evaluate it from zero, they connect it to everything they've heard before. It creates a shortcut in thinking, something was off before, so maybe this is part of it. And just like that, a brand new rumor gets extra credibility without needing new evidence. And here's the most important part: speed vs truth. Rumors move fast. Facts move slow. By the time Rocky's actual statement came out, calm, supportive, completely normal, the narrative had already taken over. People had already reacted, already formed opinions, already shared posts. And once someone commits to a version of a story, they are less likely to change their mind later. So even when the truth is available, it doesn't spread as far. Not because it's less important, but because it's less exciting. That's why situations like this feel so convincing in the moment. Everything around you, posts, comments, headlines, is pointing in one direction. It creates the illusion of consensus. Like everyone knows something happened. But when you actually trace it back to the source, there's nothing solid there. Just layers of interpretation built on top of each other. And that brings us back to the core question. Was there ever a real issue between Rihanna and Rocky? Or was this entire situation constructed in real time by the internet? Because if you look at the evidence we actually have, his statement, her consistency, their history, it all points toward stability, not conflict. But if you look at what spread the fastest, the rumors, the dramatic headlines, the speculation, it tells a completely different story. And that contrast is the real takeaway here. This isn't just about a photo shoot. It's about how easily perception can be shaped, how quickly a narrative can be built, and how difficult it is to correct once it takes hold. So now, with all of that in mind, the final piece of the puzzle becomes clear. What's actually happening right now, and where does this story go from here? So where do things actually stand right now? After all the noise, all the headlines, and all the viral reactions, the reality is surprisingly simple. There has been no confirmed breakup, no verified report of conflict, and no statement from either Rihanna or A$AP Rocky suggesting that anything is wrong. In fact, the only direct response we have, Rocky's own words, points in the exact opposite direction. Calm, supportive, and completely aligned with everything he's said about Rihanna for years. And that alone tells you a lot about what's real and what isn't. At the same time, Rihanna hasn't changed anything about how she moves. No deleted posts, no clarification, no attempt to address the rumors. And if you've followed her long enough, that makes sense. She's never been the type to react to online narratives. She leads, she posts, and she lets the world catch up. That consistency is important, because it shows there hasn't been any visible shift in her behavior, no sign that something behind the scenes has forced her to adjust or step back. If anything, it looks like business as usual. And speaking of business, that's another key piece going forward. The Savage X Fenty campaign is doing exactly what it was supposed to do: generate attention. The photos went viral, engagement spiked, and the brand stayed at the center of conversation. Whether people were praising the visuals or debating the rumors, the result was the same: visibility. And in today's digital landscape, attention is currency. So while the internet focused on relationship drama, the brand itself benefited from the exposure. That doesn't mean the rumors were intentional, but it does show how moments like this can evolve into something much bigger than the original post. Looking ahead, there are really two possible paths this story can take. The first is the most likely: it fades out. The cycle moves on, a new headline takes over, and this becomes just another viral moment that people forget about in a few weeks. That's how most internet-driven stories end. Fast rise, fast fall. Especially when there's no real evidence to keep them alive. But the second possibility is more interesting. If either Rihanna or A$AP Rocky decides to address the situation directly, even briefly, it could completely reset the narrative. A single interview clip, a casual comment, or even a public appearance together could shut down everything instantly. Because at the end of the day, the only voices that can truly confirm or deny this story are theirs. And so far, they've chosen not to engage, which, in its own way, already says a lot. What this situation really highlights is how fragile public perception can be. One post, one assumption, one viral claim, and suddenly, a stable relationship gets framed as unstable. Not because of facts, but because of how the story is told. And in a space where millions of people are watching, reacting, and sharing at the same time, that story can take on a life of its own before anyone has a chance to question it. So as things stand right now, the facts are clear. No breakup confirmed. No verified conflict. One viral photo shoot. And a narrative that grew far beyond what actually happened. The rest? Still speculation. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this was just another case of the internet overreacting? Or do you believe there might be something happening behind the scenes that we are not seeing yet? Because situations like this always come down to perspective. Some people see confidence and business. Others see controversy and tension. But what matters is how you read it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm genuinely curious to see where people stand on this. And if you've been following stories like this, make sure you hit like and subscribe, because we break these situations down in a way that goes beyond the headlines. No noise, no exaggeration, just the full picture, step by step. Also, share this video with someone who's been talking about this situation, because chances are, they've only seen one side of the story. And as you've seen today, there's always more beneath the surface. Stay locked in, because if anything new comes out, any real update, any confirmed statement, we'll be covering it right here. And trust me, this won't be the last time the internet turns a moment into a mystery.